Hey guys, welcome back to another video in the Python tutorial for beginners. And today we're going to be talking about tuples. And like a tuple, like a list, a tuple is also a collection data type. And the things to know about a tuple is that it's ordered like a list is, meaning that it maintains the same order that you give it. But unlike a list, it's unchangeable, or immutable they call it, right? So a list is ordered and changeable. You can change them all around and reverse them and do whatever. But a tuple is ordered and unchangeable. So once you create it, you can't really change any of the values in it. So let's go ahead and jump right in, and I'm going to go ahead and open up PyCharm here, and I've got it open to our Programming Vault project. So we'll create another. So last time we had color list. This time we'll have color tuple. And just like list, you create it like this, only instead of using the square brackets that you use for a list, we're going to use just regular parentheses for a tuple. And we'll just say red, orange, and brown. I don't know why I capitalized brown. We'll change that. So we created a color tuple with the values of red, orange, and brown, and we'll just print it out just to verify. So that should print out the values of our tuple, and it does. Notice how even when it prints it with parentheses around it instead of the brackets like a list. So since it's unchangeable, right, that takes away a lot of the functionality that you use a list for, right? You can't really go in and reverse it and, change the items and do all sorts of things like that. I can't go and say, oh, I want the second item to be blue, right, instead. Once I've created this tuple, it remains the same. And just so you know, it's indexed just like a list. So its index runs from 0 for the first one through size -1 for the last one. So there's 3 elements in here, so this will run from 0 to 2. 0, 1, and 2 will be the index. Now if you want to access it, you can access it pretty much the same way as you do a list. So I could just print color tuple, and then I can put in here that I want to access what's it indexed to. And we know that should be brown, and it is. So you can access it in the same way as you do a list. Now for a list, we could actually go change it. We could say color tuple 2 equals green, and then this would be changed to green. But in a tuple, you can't do that, right? You can only access it. You can't change it. You can also negative index it like you can with a list. So if I do that, it should you should be able to start backwards: -1, -2, -3. So this -1, this should print brown as well. And it does. And so I'm losing power, guys, so I'll be back in just 1 second. Okay, so I've plugged in and I'm back. So we went through accessing items in a tuple, and we talked about negative indexing. You can also access them through a range, just like you do with a list. So if I were to go in here and put the range of 2:5, that means, well, that's not going to work. I'll put the range of 0:2, and let's see what it prints out. Well, that's wrong, because I left this bracket off. It prints red and orange. So it starts at 0 and goes through the second item, red and orange. So you can access items through a range of indexes as well. Now, as we said many times already, a tuple is unchangeable. You can't change values. But if I just had to have that third value to equal green, and it had to be a tuple, I could do it like this. I could turn it into a list and then change it and then turn it back to a tuple. So I could say y equals list and give it color tuple, right, as a parameter. And then I could, for instance, say y2 equals green. So while we're on here, let's go ahead and just print out this list that we've created from our tuple and make sure that it has the values that we want in it. Red, orange, and green. It does. So now that we've done that, so we created a tuple, red, orange, and brown, decided we wanted brown to be green. We can't change a tuple, so we made a list called Y that is a copy of the tuple that we created in the beginning. Then we changed our Y list to have the correct values of red, orange, and green in them. And now we want to change it back to a tuple. So we should just be able to say color tuple equals tuple and give that a value of Y. I'm going to go ahead and run that just to make sure it works real quick. Okay, it does work. So now let's just print it out to prove it. So we'll print color tuple. So in the beginning we created color tuple with the wrong values. We converted it to a list and changed it. And now we're going to print it to make sure it has the values in it that we want. And it does. Now it is a tuple made up of red, orange, and green. So that's the only way that you can really change values of a tuple, is to convert it to a list, change it, and then convert it back to a tuple. You can also concatenate tuples just like you can lists. We'll go ahead and run through that. And let me go ahead and say, if you hadn't already watched the last video I made about lists and list functions, you should probably watch that. It'll be a lot better. It'd be a lot easier for you to learn these things. Before we do, let me put those things back. Before we go through the concatenation, let me just demonstrate that you can also go ahead and use the length function that we talked about last time, the len function. So we can just go into print and we can put the length function inside the print function and print the length of the tuple. And it is 3 items long, right? There's 3 elements in it. So that's how you can use the length. Another thing you can do is concatenate. So if I wanted to create a tuple of 1, 3, and 5, and then I want to create another tuple of 7 and 9, I should be able to make a new tuple, C equals A plus B, and then I should be able to print C, and you should see that those tuples are now concatenated, and they are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. All right, so you can do that. So let me go back a little bit to where I had the color tuple. So the only 2 functions that Python really gives you for tuples are tuples called count are functions called count and index. And when you run a count function, that's going to return the number of times a value exists. So let's go ahead and use the count function. So we'll go ahead and print, if I could type print, and inside there we'll put count, and we'll put color tuple dot count, and then in parentheses we'll put the value that we're looking for. Let's say red. So we're going to print out the count of red in color tuple. Let's look at that just to see it. And yeah, it appears 1 time. If red were in there twice, it would print out 2 times because it's in there twice. You can also print out the index of a particular value. And if it's in there more than once, that's a good example. So there was the count function that returns the number of times a particular value is in your tuple. There's also the index function that returns the index of a specified value from your tuple. In this instance, you notice we have red in our tuple twice. And then we said, hey, tell me what index red is at. And it returns 0 because it will just return the first one, right? So if we had this as black, then it should return now an index of 1, and it does. So that's how that works. So that's basically tuples and tuple functions. They're very much the same as lists, except that they cannot be changed once they're created. And if you have to change the values after you create them, then you just have to convert them to a list and change them and convert them back to a tuple. So I hope you liked it. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you have any comments or questions. And I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.